Alright, so adding on to the long list of characters that are underrated, we have Leysritt and Cella, that being the maids of Illya. You may have noticed them standing in the background here and there like two menacing gargoyles, but rarely do we ever get a chance to lash down on their true purpose, why they were created, and are they truly meant to just stand behind Illya indefinitely. As you know already, the Ironsburns are a family of homunculi, and over the years there have been many homunculi that were scrapped in the process until they finally struck gold with people like Illya, Irie, and Philya. Sella and Leysritt are one of those. They are the ones coined as one of the Ironsburns' many failures. If you remember back in UB-Dub, there's even a portion of the story where Illya was able to witness all of these homunculi that never got to see the light of day. They're all just piled up in a room like worthless pieces of junk. At least that's the way that they saw them. And you really got to see firsthand what Ilya's fate could have been had she not come out the way that she did, and it really put things into perspective for her. On top of all the things that she already had going on mentally and physically, considering the way that she was being treated at the castle, her being built up to lead Heracles as well as being the Grail vessel. And that's the thing. There's a caveat where if you're good enough and you do have potential, where you stand in the middle for them of not being useless enough to be scrapped, but not being good enough to be the Grail vessel either. You end up in a position like them where you become a maid for the castle. And that's the circumstance where they have these maids. They look out for Illya, they guard her with their life, and they're actually a lot more impressive than the story may lead you to think. But you would never know this because their presence is really short-lived. We do have some slice of life scenes here and there that's a part of the main story, like the Fate route, but there's no anime for the Fate route, so there goes that. Most of the time where you see them ends up being in the spin-offs: Prisma Illya, Emia's Cooking Show, Unlimited Codes, Hollow Ataraxia, everything outside of the main work. But for the most part in the story, Illya never really uses them, and when they finally do step into the fray, they end up fighting somebody like Gilgamesh, unfortunately. So in that vein, they're forced in a box where no matter how impressive they are, they're in the same box as Heracles because Gil just forecasted them to death. It doesn't matter how strong you are up close if you can't get to me. So that's the thing with that. In terms of personality, and this just goes for many duos in general, it reminds me a lot of Hisui and Kohaku, or Luvia and Ren, where they both have these opposing personalities, so they're always going back and forth to complement each other. And it really just makes for an interesting dynamic between the two, especially since they both come from the same place. They're all like sisters in a way, so it really just fits the bill. So on one side you have Sella. This is the one that's a lot more serious and really gets focused when it comes to the situation at hand. And then there's Leysritt. That's the one that's more calm, and she often in a way trolls Cella because Cella, she's always so intentional, and Leysritt is kind of always just chilling. It's like, please Cella, hit the blunt, relax just one time. And there's actually an in-story reason for this. It's so hilarious. So for Leysritt, she actually doesn't have all of her senses as an entity, as a person. Her true function, and I've talked about this a bit in my third magic video, is actually to serve as a mystic code for Illya. She herself is the dress of heaven. She's the dress that Illya wears when she performs her magic, or the dress that you saw Irie wear in FGO. That's the dress that they put on when it's time to put their magic into action. You can see her wearing this at the end of Heaven's Field when she did her incomplete version of the third magic to save Shiro. Now, with that in mind, because Leysritt operates as the dress of heaven, among other things, she's maxed out in terms of efficiency. When a mage is in the process of their experimentation, when they're trying to convert ether, if they mess up, they end up with these ether lumps. And this is something that's explained to us in the material. They try to bring one of the four elements into fruition, and then the process goes wrong, and this is the product that they're left with. Now, you can't really do anything with this but allow it to serve as a magical energy energy source. So what the Ironsburn said is, hey, we may have failed, but we're not gonna let this go to waste. So in terms of that, this ether lump is what was used as the base for Leysritt. The lumps do, however, work as a phenomenal magic reserve. So she was built on being impressive from the start. Since she doesn't function like a whole person, you know, like being super charismatic or attentive, she just functions like she needs to get the job done. That's what she was made for. That's the only thing that she comes out to do. Whereas Cella isn't a mystic code and she has all of her senses, you would have thought that she was an actual human because everything is all there. And you can tell the difference. It's clear as day. But they both end up being amazing for that very reason. Going back into how impressive they are, it's actually stated that Leysritt is on par with Ryder in terms of physical strength, despite her being a servant. Leysritt can operate as a master if need be. She has her own variant of command spells, if you weren't already aware. But like I mentioned before, the way the story is carved out, the only time you really get to see that is in Hollow Ataraxia, which really isn't accessible to the public. So when it comes to Leysritt, again, a part of her being at this max efficiency is that she has this huge halberd. And the reason that this is so good is because the halberd itself is made out of rhenium. This stuff is stronger than tungsten steel. This is stronger than the steel you put on tanks. And it even goes on to tell us that a human couldn't pick this up, let alone imagining wielding it in combat. You try to lift this thing, you're breaking your arm, straight up. So she's better than most by default. And as I mentioned before, in terms of physical strength, she's on par with Medusa. And we've all seen how Medusa gets down. Her physical strength is also better than average. She handled Curse Arm Hassan with no issue at all. And the story is essentially telling us that Leysritt is on that same level. It goes on even further to tell us that with enough magical energy, she could fight against servants like Saber Alter, something she's actually done in Unlimited Codes, which is a huge feat by any standard. Are you kidding me? That's something that most servants couldn't accomplish. The weapon that she wields, the huge halberd, is called the Rising Arm, and due to her physical strength being this great, she picks the weapon up like it's nothing, like it's a toothpick, a Q-tip, and swings it around like it's not even there. Then she has extremely quality magic circuits. They both do, but her even more so. Not quite Illya level, but still having that great potential. It's a shame that we really didn't get to see more of the both of them in the main canon, I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, I still wouldn't mind having that fourth route where we tackle all the ideas that ended up getting strapped, just try to like pull it all together and see what they come up with, because you know there was supposed to be an Illya route and it got canned. She ended up just getting her own show instead, which is even better. But I just know we missed out on some gold. And a part of that concept is what they did with Hollow Ataraxia, so it didn't go to waste. But there's nothing to say that Nasu used everything. I still know that he has more in the tuck and Ataraxia only got some of it. You can't help but wonder what else are we missing out on. So when it comes to Cella, she's also great in terms of a magical energy source, but she's not exactly suited for combat on her own. Since Cella wasn't designed to be a mystic code, she's all the way there. She acts more so like an actual guardian to Illya, like a parent, so to speak. When she saw that Illya was willing to let Shiro and Ren go, she was pissed because she knew that might be something to come back and bite her in the end. And she didn't want anything to happen to her. She's always looking out for her. Even by the means of Prisma Illya, you can see she's often acting more motherly than Irisville herself. Irisville kind of just lets her do what she wants, which is good in a sense. You don't want to box somebody in, but I'm gonna tell you, Irie does not care. If you actually watch Prisma Illya, Irie does not care at all. It's so funny. So that's her version of parenting. Everybody's got their own way. And you'll see Cella having these takes often, and that's the reason why she bumps heads with Leysritt, because Leysritt is just like chill, and Cella on the other side is super about the mission because everything is all there. She can really express her feelings, unlike Leysritt. That's not something Leysritt has to worry about because that's not her function. It's just one of those things. And this does doesn't even include Philia. Philia is in the same boat of having that great potential as a homunculus. She is in fact the vessel that is used by Ishtar in Strange Fate, and the reason why Ishtar is able to get her goals off so well. It really just shows how far the Ironsburn capacity can really go. It's really boundless, and if you see the things that she's doing in Strange Fate, you would wonder why didn't they go with the move of what Ishtar did from the jump. There's points where she's got the whole cast running around going nuts.